Thank you, and good morning, Speaker. My question is for the Premier. The fall economic statement presented yesterday in this House is nothing more than a pre-election.
Stop the clock. Minister of Tourism, Culture and Sport will come to order. Next one gets us to warning. Finish, please. This
is a pre-election house of cards. As we dig deeper into the numbers, it's clear that the Auditor General and Financial Accountability Office are absolutely correct not to believe them. By the government's own admission, the economy will underperform many private sector forecasts for 2017, which had growth at 3% or higher. Despite the government's narrative, it doesn't line up with the fact that growth is slowing as we speak. Yet they're still predicting a $10 billion revenue increase this year. Speaker, none of that adds up. To the Premier, why do they continue to thumb their nose at the legislature's independent experts who say the budget is not balanced?
Mr. Speaker, so here are the facts that we are dealing with in Ontario. Our economy has grown faster than all G7 countries over the past 3 years. 800,000 net new jobs have been created since the recession, Mr. Speaker. Our unemployment rate is at a 16-year low, Mr. Speaker, and it's been below the national average for 31 straight months. And, Mr. Speaker, we've beaten our deficit targets 8 years in a row, and our debt-to-GDP ratio is projected to fall from around 40%, Mr. Speaker, to 37.8%. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, Ontario is doing very well. We are leading economic growth in this country. But, Mr. Speaker, what the member opposite fails to acknowledge is that there is more to be done, which is why our plan to raise minimum wage, Mr. Speaker, to ensure equal pay for equal work, Mr. Speaker, those are the pillars of a fair society that apparently the member opposite is not interested in supporting.
Be seated, please.
Be seated, please.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Back to the Premier. Well, again, none of that is agreed to by the Auditor General or the Financial Accountability Office. By almost every metric, this government has underperformed since the 2017 budget. Revenues are only up $115 million, nowhere close to their forecast, yet expenses are up $215 million since the budget. Personal income tax and health premium revenue is down, Speaker, $1.8 billion since the budget, yet they still say revenue will increase by $10 billion this year. We have rosy, glowing predictions from the government, but in reality, the numbers just aren't there. The truth does not fit with their narrative, Speaker. Right, exactly. Speaker, why does it always take the Auditor General, the Financial Accountability Officer, or the OPP to get to the truth in this government?
Kurt, you know, the reality is corporate revenue is up, Mr. Speaker. The fact is that our economic growth is leading the country. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, this party across the floor promised that they would roll back the $15 minimum wage. They would kick the increase to $15 over a 4-year fix.
Your decision's made. We're in warnings.
Would kick the increase to $15 an hour down for 4 years, a 4-year phase-in, Mr. Speaker, which is tantamount to denying that increase, Mr. Speaker. It is tantamount to not allowing people to catch up. And the fact is, Mr. Speaker, that although the province is doing well, not everyone in the province.
The member from Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke, the member from Leeds, Grenville are warned. You don't get the message, I'll give it to you. Final supplementary.
Back to the Premier. Well, the experts have been clear that the government has been using one-time revenue to fluff up their budget numbers. Money from the Hydro One sale, that's over now. From land transfer tax, the housing market's cooling. From federal transfers, that fluctuates every year. Now, without these massive one-time revenues, the government still says annual revenue growth will be 4% over the next 4 years, but the Financial Accountability Officer says it will average just 3%. Doesn't sound like much, Speaker, but those are billions of dollars apart. None of this, what they're saying, adds up whatsoever. So, Speaker, if the independent legislative experts don't believe this government's numbers, why should any Ontario families?
Thank you. Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite maybe didn't read this fall economic statement because we revised our numbers from 2.3% real GDP to 2.8% real GDP, which is lower than independent economists predict for the continuing growth of our economy and for the province of Ontario. In fact, HST has gone up, showing consumer confidence. Business investment is going up, showing business confidence, Mr. Speaker. Our accumulated deficits over the past 25 years is lower today than it's ever been. And our debt to GDP is improving. The member opposite is making reference, but he's not taking to acknowledge that the independent economists, the independent review, the investors are showing confidence in our province because we are winning, and we are supporting opportunity at the same time creating fairness so that every individual in this province does get a fair wage and businesses get their fair share. We are all improving our economy, and we're working together, Mr. Speaker.